Hello, my name is Jorge Luis Juan Gonzalez, and I'm going to introduce my project, which is called Developing Reading and Writing Strategies in the Classroom through Reading. Now, to talk about the project, it is also important to mention the context of the students that I work with. I decided to work with my second grade students of Group C. Their age is between 12 and 13 years old. They study in the morning shift in the public secondary school 18 de Marzo, which is located in Álamo, Temapache. According to the Common European Framework, the English level is from A1 to A2. Now, let's talk about the theoretical foundation of my planning. It is important to recall that mainly it is based on reading and writing outcome, but I work in a holistic approach. So listening and speaking are also work and then also put an emphasis on these plannings. Okay, let's talk about the bottom-up model. This model refers that or put emphasis on the importance of decoding individual words, letters, and grammatical structures in order to understand the overall meaning of the text. An important aspect that I put emphasis on the planning, these ideas of uh, of the meaning. On the other hand, we have the top-down model. This approach refers of the use of the background knowledge, which is going to lead to the comprehension and understanding of the main idea of the text. Another important aspect that I want to improve on my student. Then we have Highland approaches for writing. Douglas Highland defined writing as the process where a person selects, develops, arrange, and express ideas of units of discourse. It is important to say that I took several of these ideas and adapted into my planning, such as the creativity, organization, etc. And the other one is CPD, or Song of Proximal Development. This idea developed by Vygotsky that refers or put emphasis on this idea of autonomy of the learner, of the student. Uh, he also say that the learning process could be reached not just by teacher, but by another peer, another classmate, or another more knowledgeable person. I took as inspiration and put emphasis on several ideas like the release of responsibility of the teacher, the collaborative learning, and the continuous assessment and feedback. And in this point, I integrate technology in order to do a more outdated assessment and feedback on my class. Okay, let's talk about the learning objective of the plan. This planning aims to explore the whole reading. News articles could be a strategy to improve writing and reading skills in the classroom, but also through comprehension, a student can develop their understanding of the English language and culture. It is also important to mention that by reading and writing, the student can improve vocabulary, grammar, and learn different aspects and do this comparison of his or her social and cultural environment to the L2 environment that we are studying. Okay, let's talk about planning. At the beginning, I was really inspired by Krushen's ideas about the affective filter, so I put emphasis on lowering this filter on my students in order to create a more friendly atmosphere, which is going to lead to more participate students. Also, here, through show them authentic material, I present the topic of the class and introduce the vocabulary. We were speaking the whole time. I spoke during this uh, point of the class in English. I did a lot of mimics. My students tried to do it. Uh, they were really motivated. They were really interested about the headlines that I present because we're really update news. Then, as reading, after the warm up and the speaking approach, I decided to work on reading. Uh, I gave them these pieces of news articles, which were taken from the BBC website. So the authentic material show authentic, real language. Uh, I focus here on comprehension and basic pronunciation. I want to say that it is important that students know how people in real life communicate. So I put emphasis on this, on the authentic material. They were very positive. They were reading. They use cell phones. So I also integrate technology here. Okay, listening. This was the weakest aspect on the whole planning, because the students are not really familiarized with this. But I did this technique, which was to divide the listening aspect on three. During pre-listening, we read the conversation about these three students in a secondary school that the textbook show us. We locate unknown vocabulary, we observe the structure, we did a brief conversation about the aspects that we observe on the conversation. During listening, I pause several times the recording in order to ask the student if they were understanding. I asked for vocabulary. I asked them if how they feel, which were their emotions during the listening, and after and post listening, we discuss again the level of difficulty of the listening. They told me that there were words that they didn't know, that it was kind of difficult, and but they tried to do it. Uh, After all this, I gave them some techniques. I explained them that it doesn't matter. Sometimes we failed during this task, but the important thing is to keep on practice, to never give up. So they were like very disappointed, but at the same time they were really positive. Okay, as closure, I work on writing. The students have to elaborate a short piece of news. Uh, they work on things because, as I previously said, I believe in this collaborative learning. So they joined in a team in order to write their piece of news, which I'm going to show you later. In this aspect, or in this point of the planning, I encourage creativity. I I was monitoring how they were writing, because I asked them if they have questions, if they have doubts about the grammar, and as I told you before, I allowed that the students use the cell phones. Uh, Something that was positive in a way, but also negative, because I'm going to explain you also later this. I was very positive about the outcomes that I observed my students. I observed these ideas of crashings, because as their filter were low, they were really creative. They were really positive to work with, and this collaborative learning, also these ideas of the CPD were really visible on this approach of the planning. Okay, about assessment and rubric, how I did this. First, I took as inspirations the assessments and the evaluation instruments that the book gave us. It was easier to grading like this. I took several aspects of the skills, and I did this criteria from 1 to 4 to analyze their performance. Also, uh, there are these questionnaires that are yes or no, and the student can grade themselves. But an important aspect that I also did is the self-assessment that are located at the end of the unit of each book. As the CPD said, this intention of create independent students is really important. So I do not grade the self-assessment. It's just like a mirror from the student. Then she or he can observe what really learn. If he or she accomplished the aspect that I was intent to guide them, or if they need to work more, they need to put more practice on their learning aspects. It's very positive to observe that some students are really critical about their performance. So they say they approximate. They told me, "Teacher, I need to improve on this. I can dig this." So they were like really critical. They were really uh, real about what they learn. Okay, now let's talk about the final project. The students now have to write a short piece of news. They were really inspired. They were really positive. They were really happy to do this because, as I told you, I always allowed creativity in the classroom. I also told them you have to put you have to put on that paper what were the things that happened in your life. Something funny, something sad, something interesting. Use your imagination. So students they were really creative on this. They did very beautiful pieces of of news articles. And I told you previously, in observing this in a holistic approach, as a teacher, it was very positive. It was very satisfactory to observe how all this knowledge merged in one. Uh, I was I gave, sorry, very positive feedback of their work. They were, as are in the pictures, they correct themselves. And again, observing these ideas of crashing, of CPD, how the same student and in this collaborative learning, they can correct themselves, how they can help each other in this collaborative learning. Okay, the outcomes of the lesson here are four. The number one is the importance of observe the motion of the students during all these approaches to observe how they are receiving this information. The number two was this aspect of allowing technological gadgets. In a certain aspect, it is positive because they get access to information, but on the other hand, this this amount of information is like it's like a lot for them, so they get lost and they need my guidance again to took the correct thing that they were looking for. The aspect number three, unfortunately, 50 minutes is not enough. So I would like to do more things, but sadly, time was not enough. Finally, how the students is still dealing with vocabulary and grammar. They do not have this background of grammar to do more complex things on their outcomes. They were looking for again for vocabulary for and how to correct their spelling, but my main focus was that the students put emphasis on writing. Probably, I mean, it was not like the best piece of article, but it was good. It was okay. Okay, the conclusions, the things that I have learned during all the specialization and this project. The number one, the importance of the emotional filter. I was very inspired by crashing, and I put emphasis on this, the emotion of the student. The number two, the use of CPD. Again, I am trying to create this autonomous, this independent, this critical student. The number three, the integration of technology in the classroom. Again, the importance of bringing these new devices that technology gave us, but we are dealing with how take advantages of this. The number four, the importance of the framework and how the teacher could improve the strategies in their teaching practice. This teacher that I am now is totally different from the teacher that I was in 2022. So the importance of know these strategies to update the framework we are working with is really important. And finally, the concept of interculturality, an idea that I was left because now I have the idea of how really important is this concept on my teaching, how you are not just learning grammar and vocabulary, you are also learning the culture of this new alto that you are teaching in your students. Now, on the other hand, we have the challenges. Teaching, obviously, and writing, and assessing, sorry, focusing on writing. Writing is not a piece of cake for grading, and on beginners is more challenging because I told you I put a lot of emphasis on the emotions of my students, so I have to be very careful about how I was grading their work. So I am still working on that. The other thing is improve my teaching practice and adapt these new ideas that I have learned on specialization on my teaching philosophy. As I told you, I'm not the same teacher that I was 1 year ago. Now I am adapting, I am putting on practice these ideas that I am learning here on the specialization and the outcomes that I observe on my project. And finally, unfortunately, on the public system, we have a lot of lack of resources. So as a teacher, you have to be you have to be very smart. You have to put more work on these things. So you have to be very clever. You have to be like the smartest guy in the room because due to the lack of these resources, there are a lot of issues in which you cannot work. So, sometimes it's not pleasant, but you have to work because it's for the best for your students. Okay, that was all. Thank you so much. These are my references. And again, I am Jorge Luis Juan Gonzalez. It was a pleasure.